Fruit for Thought: Recovering the Original Fruit/Fruits of the Spirit and Harvesting It/Them Today. Written by Art Edwards. Copyright 2022. This presentation and recording were done by Casey Evans with permission from the author. Author's note: some names and locations in the author's personal stories have been changed. These events happened pretty much as described, at least in my memory. First words: if God reveals anything to you by any other instrument of His, be as ready to receive it as you were to receive any truth by my ministry. For I am verily persuaded the Lord hath more truth yet to break forth out of His holy word. John Robinson, 1620. God prefers fruit of the Spirit over religious nuts. Adrian Rogers, 2017. Dedication: to all the searchers, seekers, drifters, dreamers, wanderers, and wonderers who find their way forward by looking backward. Introduction. I've heard it said that everyone has at least one sermon in them, and several about them. Most people's sermons focus, as well they should, on forgiveness, gratitude, or grace. But, as my life and experience would have it, my one sermon, in book form because it's too long for Sunday morning, focuses on fruit. If you're looking for Orthodox Christianity, you won't find it here. I was once disqualified from ordination in the United Methodist Church by a committee of elders for suggesting the Trinity was only the beginning of an infinite number of ways to look at God. Once in this theological hole, I continued digging. I went on to speculate that missionaries sometimes indicated our lack of faith that God could get the message of love across in any culture in unexpected ways. After all, as King James wrote in his Bible in 1 John chapter 4, verse 7, "Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone that loveth is born of God and knoweth God." If you're looking for untethered, New Age spirituality, you won't find that here either. I love and respect too many of the traditions that have comforted, inspired, and challenged people seeking to follow Christ to ignore them. Sometimes the problem with the past is not that it's wrong, but that we have obscured and forgotten its original meaning. If you're looking for a soul on a pilgrimage to discover the new light that can break forth from the old word by reflecting on everyday people, places, and ordinary events, you might find it here. We would do well to rediscover original meanings in ancient words that have been right in front of us for millennia. But I am equally persuaded that we need to connect original meanings to present-day life. So I rejoice in the fresh eyes and hearts illuminating today's journeys. Whether the ideas and feelings in these pages strike a chord or remind you of a clanging gong, I hope you will find this book useful, funny, and challenging. Let me know at awe3@mac.com. Alpha, Avatar 3D, Flatland 2D, and String Theory 11 to 13D. I first heard about the fruit of the Spirit when I was about 15. I began my church life when many people end theirs. The fruit of the Spirit verses were catchy, and I memorized them as I did many other parts of the King James Bible. To this day, the only Bible verses I can quote come out of my mouth in 17th century English. Note for grammar nerds: I'm going to put fruit of the Spirit and other assorted words in italics. Why? I want the words to stand out, and all my grammar teachers are long gone. Even though I could recite the verses, their meanings eluded me. But please understand, I thought I knew what they meant. After all, how many meanings could straightforward words like joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, and love have? Okay, even at 15, I knew there was more than one meaning for love, but I didn't think any of the other fruit words held multiple meanings. I was well into my 60s before I discovered how wrong I had been about this and many other things. As much as I loved the King James Bible, it wasn't written in the language Jesus spoke. Yes, at some level, I knew that. Though Anglo-centric and arrogant, I wasn't a complete idiot. But beginning with the 3D movie, continuing with the discovery of a 2D world, and moving into something with 11 or 13 dimensions called string theory, it started to dawn on me that there was much more to the fruit of the Spirit than I realized. This book meanders along my winding path to a more complete understanding of some words from nearly 2,000 years ago. These words were first spoken in a language that has disappeared, written in a language I don't speak, come from a place I've never been, and were part of a culture I can't imagine. Avatar 3D. A few years ago, Joyce, my spouse, and I went to see the 3D version of the movie Avatar. We put on our special multicolored glasses and settled into our comfy seats with a bucket of drinks on one side and a pop-utopia of kettle corn on the other. By most accounts, it was a remarkable experience. As people in the theater watched, I saw them bobbing and weaving while dodging objects presumably flying from the screen. At one point, the audience entered an otherworldly forest in an alternate reality filled with glowing something or others swarming all around. The phantasmal beasties seemed friendly. When they approached, people tried to reach out and touch them. The touching was followed by on-screen crashes, booms, bursts, and eventually visions of pastoral serenity. Unfortunately, there was no 3D experience for me. I've been told my eyes don't function correctly. They aren't my only underperforming organs, but that's another story. It's not so much that I have a lazy eye, as it is a more severe inability to focus in a way that enables 3D special effects to be visible in my brain. Some of you may remember the Magic Eye books from a while back. If you stared at abstract designs long enough, they revealed breathtaking multi-dimensional images. There was no joy for me in Magic Eye books. I suppose I have what Harry Potter and his friends might call muggle eyes. This same condition makes my feeble efforts at basketball like trying to get a ball through a hoop drawn on a backboard. At least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I should add that I'm not totally bereft of any awareness of a third dimension. It's just that movies and certain specific images always look flat to me. But one day, while lamenting my visual imperfections, I discovered Flatland. Flatland 2D. Flatland is an imaginary world with only two dimensions, length and width. I'm not making this up. The world was invented by a multi-talented preacher, teacher, and Shakespearean scholar named Edwin Abbott in 1884. Imagine what it might be like to live in Abbott's two-dimensional world is an excellent way to generate gratitude for the third dimension. If a person lived in an actual flatland, they wouldn't see any third dimension. But should someone from a three-dimensional world expose flatlanders to a standard yellow number 2 pencil, poking through their space, the event would rock their world. Since flatlanders can't comprehend height, they'd never see the pencil coming. When it intersected their world, they would see a black, two-dimensional dot corresponding to the pencil's point. As the pencil passed through their world, they would see the dot get bigger. Then they would see it change color from black, the lead, to brown, the wood, to yellow, the paint. Finally, the shape would morph from the point circle to a seven-sided yellow thing, and then back to an eraser-colored circle before disappearing without warning. One denizen of Flatland, a scientist or theologian, might look at another and seeing the penetrating pencil say, What was that? His friend might reply, I have no idea. I've never seen anything like it. The first would go on, Me neither. Maybe we should call it God. Thanks to Rob Bell for this idea. This isn't as strange as you might think. Even though we're blessed with a three-dimensional world, we spend much time in Flatland. Anytime we're watching TV, looking at a Kindle, scrolling our smartphone, surfing the net, posting on Facebook, tweeting on Twitter, or writing a book on a screen, we're in Flatland. Whenever we choose to experience the world via screen space, pick a screen, any screen. We're Flatlanders. To 3D people, Flatlanders have a terribly limited worldview. But guess what? What if, in the grand scheme of things, our 3D world was as constrained as Flatland? This idea takes us to string theory. 11 or 13 dimensions, string theory. I'm advised the cryptic scribbling above makes it clear our universe isn't Flatland. We know we don't live in Flatland, but some physicists, including Sheldon on the Big Bang Theory, believe 3 dimensions are only the beginning. They say there are strings built in from particles smaller than neutrinos, quarks, or gluons, whatever they are. Strings are one-dimensional slices of a two-dimensional membrane vibrating in an 11 or 13-dimensional universe. Well, of course they are. Try to comprehend 11 or 13 dimensions. We can't conceive of them any more clearly than Flatlanders can imagine a pencil, or I can appreciate Avatar. The strings appear to us, relative Flatlanders by comparison, as light, gravity, matter, sound, or energy. All matter, light, and energy originate in these strings. The theory says these strings connect the universe and everything in it at a fundamental level, like a cosmic spider web or fungi's mycelial networks. Maybe this is where the coat hangers that seem to breed in closets come from. Interestingly enough, physicists don't believe in these strings, membranes, and multidimensional space because they have found them. Instead, they believe this theory because it explains what they see around them. Sound familiar? It's faith-based physics. Now ask yourself, if folks with Nobel Prizes can believe in faith-based physics, why can't folks without Nobel Prizes believe in God? Maybe our looking at God is like Flatlanders looking at a pencil. Okay, so how can we add dimensions to the God who surrounds us? How can we gain a more complete sense of something that's beyond the dimensions we know? It requires reconsidering how we look at everything we think we know about God. How do we do that? It may seem simple, but we could start by looking at the Bible differently. We read it in English as if English tells the whole story of 6,000 years of faith. It doesn't. Every time God's story is translated into another language, God loses a dimension or two. And when we start building theologies, doctrines, and denominations around the stories, God loses more than a dimension or two. Metaphor alert, if God is a jewel, every new biblical translation strips away a facet. So, let's begin a journey that takes us back to the original understanding of one of the most important revelations we have about God. We can do this by recovering what Paul meant when he wrote about the fruit of the Spirit. We can't do this by looking at the meanings our words have today. Instead, we have to recover the meanings and dimensions of the Greek words Paul used. Disclaimer, I am not a Greek scholar. Greek is, well, Greek to me. But I've read books written by Greek scholars trying to get to the root of the fruit. As I gathered information, instead of torturing it until it confessed what I wanted it to say, I followed experts where they led rather than my personal preferences and intuitions. Then I tried to stitch everything together. I'm not saying the original meaning of the Greek words in the New Testament is the only meaning or even their best meaning. Some things change, but the original understanding of something is the place to begin our quest for meaning. By doing this, we can add facets to the God jewel. We can recover layers of meaning that have been lost by getting beneath the layers that have been added, like new coats of wallpaper. When we do this with the fruit of the Spirit, we'll discover God revealed in action, not in ideas. We'll think of each fruit of the Spirit, wherever you see it, whoever bears it, whatever their belief, as a new dimension of the God beyond words, originally written in code as YHWH, Yahweh. I invite you to travel with me for the following 13 chapters as we delve into examples of each fruit of the Spirit. It's an interesting coincidence that physicists say there might be 13 dimensions to the universe. Paul can't be connected to string theory, right? God can't have 13 dimensions, right? Still, you might think of each of the fruit as revealing something more about a facet of God you may not have been aware of before. Yikes, two prepositions in a row to end a sentence with. I'm hoping that as we journey, we can leave Flatland behind and add dimensions and facets to a pearl of great price. Wait, what? A pearl can't have facets? Or is that the point? A note from the author. Thank you for listening and viewing the first section of Fruit for Thought. If you enjoyed this clip, then a hardcover print copy of the book can be purchased by searching for Art Edwards, Fruit for Thought on Google, Amazon, or store.bookbaby.com. Grace and peace, Art Edwards.